Why were you such a coward? Why was it in all the things that you could have done, you were fearful to take the chance? When you're fighting for your life, you hold on, which is what I was doing.
What was it in you? Is it nature versus nurture? I'm curious.
There's certainly an element of competitive spirit. I wanted to be elite. I wanted to be great. Forget leading, just follow.
What made you want to coach?
I was a leader that had learned. I learned under the best.
You mentioned your son Teague. You lose him at 5 years old.
I remember the surgeon coming out and like, oh man, why is he looking down? Oh, sorry. Grief isn't something that I ever experienced. We fought to stay together, right? We fought to raise a family.
The word choosing and chosen has come up. Can you go deeper on that ethos of yours?
Chosen suffering is a fancy word for love, because you will suffer the most for the things you love the most. They say discipline is a superpower.
Sure.
It's available to everybody. What I thought I knew, I realized I didn't know.
All right, Coach. First of all, thank you for hosting us. This place is amazing. It's really cool, and it's good to see, and even get to watch your guys wrestle a little bit. That was a bonus for me. And some of these are like the best wrestlers in the world. It's pretty cool. So thank you for having us.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming down and setting it all up. And I'm grateful.
So I want to go back to a moment in your career. I love thinking about like chosen suffering, as you would say. And this is you're driving from Syracuse to Iowa. Okay. Mm-hmm. You're a wrestler. Iowa is like known as the place. And you said it was a soul cleanser. You said, I collapsed in my car outside the arena. This is after your very first workout. I think you wanted to be a walk-on, right? University of Iowa, playing for or wrestling for a legendary coach. And then you said, I couldn't stop crying. What happened like in that moment? Take me back to that time, why you chose to go to Iowa, and then what happened after that first day practicing, trying to get through a workout?
Yeah. So in 7th grade, kind of the dream started, right?
Yeah.
I got cut from the basketball team, which I thought I was sweet, and I wasn't. And my coach, Mr. O'Leary, basically said, you're aggressive, you foul a lot, you should probably try wrestling.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going to wrestle. The uniform threw me off a bit. So my brother started wrestling in 9th grade. He was 2 years older than me. He said, I saw I come home for dinner, and I let everybody know I got cut from the basketball team. And, Mom, there was 7 of us. So Mom and Dad were kind of a bit busy with, just raising 7 kids.
Yeah.
So my brother's like, you're going to wrestle? I'm like, I'll give it a try. So I remember the first day in the room, and I fell in love with it. So from that point forward, it was, what can I do to be the best wrestler possible? So it was, I changed some sports. Instead of playing football, I tried in lacrosse. I ran cross country. I would run track. So everything was kind of focused on this, what's going to make me the best wrestler. So fast forward, I go to college. I choose Syracuse University. I'm living with my brother. He and I are teammates. We're wrestling a weight class apart. He's now one of the top attorneys in the world. He's the chairman of a firm called DLA Piper, which is an intellectual property law firm. I always say when he was reading, I was running. Now, he ran also, but so I tell him, read and write, right? So I get to Syracuse and I'm there with my brother, and things are going well. I'm happy. We're roommates. I am improving, but after my sophomore year, there was something, right, that was more important to me than just like being happy.
Yeah.
I had lots of good friends on the team, and things were going well, but I wanted more. And at the time, there was no internet, there were no cell phones, and the University of Iowa, led by legendary coach Dan Gable, was winning year after year. They were producing national champs, world champs, Olympic champs. So it was, for me, kind of a very logical next step. Now, the blessing in my life was I had a family that was always uplifting. There was never, you can't do it. Don't think that big. Think small-minded. It was never any of that. I never got any of that in my house. There was a lot of love. There was a lot of trust. There was a lot of chase your dreams. So I talked to my brother. I'm like, I'm going to leave after my sophomore year. I'm going to go walk on. I was on a full ride at Syracuse. We didn't have a lot of money, and money meant a lot at that time because we couldn't afford school. But I met with my brother, called my dad, called my mom, and just said, look, I'm going to leave. And they were like, let's go. Let's do it. There was no
Full ride to walk on.
You had to walk
wow.
on. So there was no, and there was no like, well, you're crazy. What are you thinking? Why would you do that? It was, I love this sport. I want to be the best in the world at it. And the facts said at that time, in this sport, you want to be under Gable. So I packed my car after my classes ended my sophomore year and drove to the University of Iowa. So the soul cleansing part comes from, I had a belief in myself. I thought I was really fit. I thought I was strong. I thought I was technical. I believed in my readiness. So I get out there. Now I had spent summers out there.
Yeah.
They had a really good wrestling camp, which transformed me as a person. It was called the Iowa Intensive Wrestling Camp. It was 1 month, 4 workouts every day for 1 month. It was run by a guy named Jay Robinson, who was an Army Ranger, and the purpose was to teach you what your capacity was, your work capacity was. So I learned the work-reward relationship at a very young age. In 8th grade, I did that. In 9th grade, I did that. In 10th grade. So every summer I would go. So I knew the region a little bit. I'd run the streets a lot, these workouts, a lot of runs in it. So I get out to the University of Iowa, I drive out there, and I drove with a guy named Roy Salger. But anyway, we get out there. I go to practice, and I remember I'm sitting in the corner of the room, and I know who Gable is, because I went to the camps out there and everyone knew who he was. If you were in wrestling, you knew who he was.
Sure.
So I'm sitting in the corner and he walks over to me. He said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm Tom and I want to wrestle for you next year." so
Wait, so you hadn't talked to the coach?
No, never.
You just went there and
just
said,
showed up.
Just showed up.
Never.
No,
I didn't know his number.
So there's a chance though you could have left the scholarship and not even got on the team.
Yeah, there's a chance that he's going to say, "You can't wrestle for me. I'm not going to get a fair chance." But it's like what you're experiencing with what you're doing with your pod. You just love it. You're good at it. And I loved it. And I didn't want to listen. At a young age, I knew at some point I was going to die. And I didn't want to be on my deathbed thinking, why are you such a coward? Why was it in all the things that you could have done, you were fearful to take the chance? And I think my home really taught me to take chances, to take risks, to not be afraid of failing. So I get out there, I'm in the corner, he walks over to me and says, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm Tom." And he said this, he said, "You're not going to get any better sitting there." That was the first thing he said to me. Go wrestle with these 2 brothers. They were the Steiner brothers.
Yeah.
Who I didn't know of them. Again, there was no internet. Now everybody knows everybody, right? Yeah. I can watch anything I want, any team I want. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to whip these 2. They were smaller than me. I felt like looking at them, eyeing them up. I'm bigger than these 2. Watch this. And the intensity of the workout was overwhelming for me. What I thought I knew, I realized I didn't know. So we're drilling. We're just kind of sparring, getting ready. What I thought was practice. So about an hour into the drill, I'm exhausted. I'm spent, physically spent. And I remember Gable yelling time. The room was filled with people. I was just in a group of 3, the 2 Steiners and me. And he yells time, and I thought that was really really hard. And then he said these words, and this is true. It's not for the drama effect. The words were, "Are you warm?"
Good warm up, coach.
And I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be terrible. Like there's nothing I can do. Yeah. There's nothing I can do because they're fresh and I'm not. I'm going to get killed here. So for the first 5 minutes of live, it went okay. And then the next hour was what I would refer to as, a brutal beating that if my mom was in the stands, she would have said, "We're going home." No one's doing that to my little boy, even though I'm a college sophomore. And it's when I knew I was in the right place. It's when I knew I made the right decision. So I was honestly too tired to even pick my head up because in wrestling, you're getting pulled on a lot.
Yeah.
So your neck muscles, your traps, your back, your lower back, your hamstrings just go. And when they go, there's not a lot you can do about it. So I literally remember grabbing my stuff like this, and I couldn't even look up. And I walked up the staircase in Carver Hawkeye Arena. I got into my red Ford Escort GT, and there was a summer day. It was June. It was a summer day. It was really hot, and I'm sitting in the car, and I just remember just crying. Probably 15 minutes, I sat there and just bawled in the parking lot. I was beaten terribly. I was kind of embarrassed, and it was a line in the sand moment for me where Are you going or staying?
Yeah.
Because I could have turned around. I could have went right back. But it was this sense of knowing that you were in the right place. I'm in the right place. This is exactly what I needed. And I'm grateful. So I go back to Roy says, I stayed in my car a little bit for a few nights. I started to make some friends. A buddy let me stay, not a buddy, but a friend of one of the guys, he let me stay in his place. And I remember going back there. And then you when you have truth, you either ignore it, which just happens a lot, right? Or you live in it. And I lived in it. And my thinking was, okay, they felt stronger than me. They were certainly more fit than me. And they were tougher than me. How can I, and they were more skillful than me. Like in every category I was beat. So, you just attack one at a time. So you feel sorry for yourself for a little bit.
Yeah.
You take a nap. And I went back to the wrestling room and got on the treadmill and ran. And the next morning I came back in and lifted. And the next day they were there, the two brothers. And I'm like, what do you think happened? I wrestled them again. The same thing happened. I
You got killed again?
Again. Like one run and one lift isn't helping anything. And I stayed. And I just, the way Gable said it was, I just kept coming back, and the power and just keep coming back. And before long, I just had dinner with those two 3 nights ago.
Oh, really?
In Vegas. Yeah, the Steiner brothers. They're amazing human beings.
Yeah.
Terry is now the head coach of the women's Olympic team, and Troy is coaching in Wisconsin. But ultimately, that level of a beating ended, and then you start to make progress.
Yeah.
And you hold on to the smallest nugget. When you're fighting for your life, you hold on, which is what I was doing. Yeah. You hold on to the smallest nugget. And the smallest nugget was I touched his leg. Right? He started to beat me up at the 15-minute mark, not the 10-minute mark. I got 1 takedown. I gave up only 10 takedowns and not 50 takedowns. And your brain just, when you're finding ways to survive and progress, you just hold on to any truth nugget you can. That is an improvement. Yeah. It wasn't I had to beat them. It was I'm closing the gap. And ultimately, I closed the gap and made the team.
What was it in you? Was it from your parents, your siblings that said, because a lot of people, you know this, they face that first day and they're like, all right, like I'm still good at Syracuse. I'm still really good. I can go have an amazing career on scholarship. I don't need this. I don't need to put myself through all this. What is it like in you or put in you through your family? Is it genetic? Is it nature versus nurture? I'm curious where it comes from to say, no. That's actually the right place where I'm getting beat up every day. That's where I want to be.
I see it in the elite guys I've ever coached. There's certainly an element of competitive spirit. Coach Meyer, Urban Meyer, right? We call it, that was his X factor. The most important thing was being in like an A-type personality competitor that even in second grade, we were on the playground.
Oh yeah.
It's like if you lose, you're fighting somebody. Yeah. Like, which I'm not condoning fighting, but like you just want to win. You want to win everything you do. And I think so. I definitely had that spirit.
Yeah.
I was small. So I was also small. I wasn't a hawk. I was a Ryan. My pop-up was a Golden Gloves champ, 5'1", Italian, my grandpa. My dad was pretty big. My dad was big, but I didn't get that size. And I had tried so many sports. And the reality was I wanted to be great at something. I wanted to be elite at something. And by trial and error, it was almost trial and error. And it wasn't like, someone boxing me in a corner and saying soccer player, lacrosse player, which is easy to do these days. I wanted to be elite. I wanted to be great. And I simply knew that by trying all these other sports, it wasn't going to happen for me in those sports. I was, in 7th grade, I was 75 pounds. Playing football against someone that weighed 160. I actually played against Scotty Graham, who was a really good running back here for Ohio State. He's from the same neighborhood, basically, I'm from, a couple towns over. I played football against him. He ran over me at least 50 times. I was a cornerback. And I remember the coach grabbing my helmet and saying, dummy, tackle him. And as a young kid weighing 75 pounds, I remember thinking, he's got to weigh 180. I weigh 75. Why don't you tackle him? Like that was my... So it just became, it was just a will to be great at something. Mm-hmm. And this was where my bread was going to be buttered. Wrestling was going to be the sport. And I wasn't going to, as I said, I wasn't going to end my career, with not knowing how high I could climb. And the only way to learn how high I can climb is around people that
are the best,
are soaring.
Yeah.
And I just inserted myself into a world of people that were really, really elite at what they did. and then it's just be a good follower,
Yeah.
right? Forget leading, just follow the one that's doing things the right way, and they're really shining. And that place was loaded with those people.
Well, it's funny. That's actually one of the traits of some of the. I've done this for a decade. We were talking about before,
Yeah.
630 plus. Most of them are pretty good followers at some point, and at regular points, they're learning leaders. That's what the name of the show is. Like they're constantly learning. And one of the guys that you learn from, I would imagine, and even non-wrestlers have heard of Dan Gable, right?
Yeah.
That's who you chose to go. I'm a football, baseball, basketball in high school, so I didn't. I saw the wrestlers. I admired them from afar. I didn't go in the room that much, though. Those guys are crazy, right? You guys have to be a little bit crazy. Anyway, Dan Gable, you go to wrestle for him. And now you're, kind of like the version of him in college wrestling as a coach.
Yeah.
There's probably books worth of stuff, but what are some of the things you picked up from playing for maybe the greatest wrestling coach of all time?
Yeah. Yeah. And I know I'll backtrack for 1 second.
Okay.
Like I think football is crazy. I love football. I'm a diehard college football fan.
Yeah.
And, even when I tried football, it was like wrestling. He's your size, where he is. Like you're as a quarterback.
Yeah.
You don't know.
You get surprised sometimes.
So I say wrestling is contact.
Yeah.
Football's impact.
Okay.
I like contact. Like it doesn't make sense to me. To run into another human being full speed makes no sense to me at all.
Okay.
But I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So the lessons from him, just so many. I think the first thing I would say was his emotional control.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't a yeller. He wasn't a screamer. I think people think that, that's a trait you have to have in order to get someone to listen to you.
Yeah.
So I think the reason why he didn't need to yell was his competence. He was so competent. Like immediately walking in the room, for me, there's I didn't know Jesus that well at the time. I know him better now.
Yeah.
But I would have said there's Jesus and Gable. So he was just so competent. He was Olympic champion, world champion.
Yeah.
He had coached every team he ever coached, won the Big Tens, 26 straight. I think he won maybe 19 national titles. I don't know. I lost track at some point. But his word was the law for me. Whatever he said, I listened to. He knew the habits of the elite.
Yep.
He had coached so many elites, so he knew exactly how an elite person acts and trains. Mm-hmm. Like I said, his emotional control was really good. He was honest.
Yeah.
It was never personal. Like he would focus on the situation and not you as a. He just never attacked you personally. You never felt attacked. It was just bluntly, your single leg needs improvement. Mm-hmm. Let's work on these positions. So, managing a team. I watched how he managed people. I watched his loyalty. I watched his structure of a season. I would have thought it would have been a lot more, going there, I thought it was going to be a lot more militaristic.
Yeah.
Like this is what you do in the morning. Exactly. You can do exactly what I say. And it was a lot of freedom, which was a blessing. So he had a perfect amount. They say, on the West Coast, you have freedom. On the right coast, you have accountability. Right. And it's this matching of the two that is just so critically important. Too much freedom, not good. I don't want to say too much accountability, but you can drive someone crazy with discipline and rituals and rules. Yeah. So you just need this happy. You're raising 5 daughters, so and raising 4 children. There's a happy medium. Being at 6 p.m. and put your cell phone on the table when you're a junior in high school is going to make them nuts. Yeah. Come in whenever you want. I don't care what you do. Isn't healthy for them either. Yeah. So it's just this happy medium, and I think under Coach Gable, I just saw this really good combination of freedom and intensity and discipline. So those are just some of the things that, and of course he was good to me. Yeah. I was a walk-on. The guy in my weight at the time, he was in my weight class at the Nationals that year. When I was at Syracuse, he was 5th. I didn't place. I knew he was there. He was in my weight. And he gave me a fair chance, which I really appreciated. He had someone that was doing well. And so just, I think his treatment of me as a person and, and seeing my love for the sport, he allowed me to be in his room.
What made you, once you got done as a wrestler, what made you want to coach?
It's kind of funny. It wasn't like I'm not from this coaching tree. Yeah. My dad and his dad and his dad's dad. I was good at wrestling. I actually honestly never thought about coaching until the Big Tens my senior year. So at the Big Ten championships, the coach from Indiana, Dwayne Goldman, who was another former Iowa wrestler, he was coaching in Indiana. He approached me at the Big Tens and just said, "Have you thought about coaching? We need someone your weight." I was a 158 pounder. But we're interested in you. Would you come in for an interview? And I said, "Let me get through the Big Tens, through the NCAAs, and I'll think about it." And so that was the first time I thought about it. But it was natural. It was natural. It was a space. I've spent so much time in my life. I had so many hours logged in the sport that it became, let me give this a try. So that's how I got into coaching. It was, it was opportunity was there and a door opened and I was ready to.
And you just kind of have kept going since.
Kept going. Yeah. So that was 1992.
Wow.
So I was an assistant coach for 2 years. Met my wife at IU when I was coaching there. So that was great. She was back from school and living in the community. That's where she grew up. And then I coached at Hofstra for 11 years as a head coach. I think I was 25 when I became a head coach at Hofstra, which I wasn't ready for.
Yeah.
Trial by fire. So I was there for 11. And then by God's grace, the Ohio State University job opens up. And I'm coaching for 11 years. And I got a shot at it. And the way the interview process went, and I believe emphatically that God wanted me here.
The interview process is fascinating, not only for coaches and for wrestling, but for anybody. I think anybody can learn. Why do you think they picked you? Like, what was it? Like, what happened? Can you even remember the process or who you talked to or what you said? I'm curious what made him, because they could probably pick anybody, right? It's Ohio State.
Yeah. Well, at the time they picked me, I thought it was because my interview was the best.
It was not, you're saying?
But as time went on, I became friends with the people that hired me. I wasn't their first choice. So that's how I learned.
Really?
Yeah. Which is fine. I don't care. I wasn't Gable's choice at all.
Yeah.
He didn't pick me. I picked him.
Yeah.
So it didn't bother me at all that they like this guy, Cale Sanderson, who has rewritten the history books. They like Tom Brands, who was a teammate of mine, who's now the head coach at Iowa.
Yeah.
They like Terry Brands, who was actually in the interview process. He and I were roommates for 3 years. But ultimately, I would say why. So I still had to get to a certain point to be in the mix, right? And the why was to the name of your podcast, right? I was a leader that had learned. I learned under the best, and that was Gable. So my connection with Gable automatically gave the people here a sense that he was around someone that was really good. Even if he got the drippings of Gable's knowledge, that's going to be better than what most have seen. So that was a big piece of it. I was very prepared for the interview. I knew who was on the committee. I put a detailed packet together, and in the packet, I kind of laid out. I had a lot of good people in my inner circle. What are concerns with Tom Ryan? Why not Tom Ryan?
Yeah.
So you attack your weaknesses, with this is what. So I attacked some weaknesses, not being from the state of Ohio. There were some people in the interview process that were from the state of Ohio. So how do I combat that? Laid out my plan, the success plan, what the first 30 days would look like. And ultimately, I also talked a lot about my faith, which was ironic because I was really growing in my faith at that time.
Yeah.
This interview was a year after, we had lost our 5-year-old son. So I was really growing in my faith. And, often they say, faith, don't bring that up in an interview. Like, that's just not part of the interview. But I can't lead and coach and share without that. It's just an important part of who I am and my belief system. So I shared some things about truth and love, which is a Jesus thing, a faith-based thing, some things that I shared. And ultimately, they just trusted and believed that I could do the job.
Yeah. You mentioned your son, Teague. He's right here behind me on the wall. I don't even know the best way to bring this up other than the fact, you lose him at 5 years old. I think anyone who's a mom or a dad is just like, oh, like it. Yeah. I have not experienced anything like that. How does that change your family? How does it change you and your wife? How does it change you as a coach going through something that most of us can never even imagine?
Well, I wasn't ready for it.
Right.
I don't know if you're ever ready for it.
No way. Yeah.
There's no way to be ready for. He was healthy.
Yep.
He was a little beast. I mean, he could do 8 pull-ups. He loved wrestling. You know, as we were talking earlier, as parents, I'm assessing his foot speed and his balance. You know, at 5, I've got him, you know, this is what he's going to do. You know, your mind starts to race. And he was the third son, my third son. Jordan was 11 at the time. Jake was 8. Teague was 5, and Mackenzie was 3. We were at the dinner table. It was President's Day, February 16, 2004. We had just come back from the wrestling room. There's no school on President's Day. So I took the kids with me. We were together all day, laughing, playing in the wrestling room. We get home. He's at the dinner table. We're having dinner. He's chosen by us to shower first, and he's pissed. So he gets up from the table, and he starts running around. My wife's chasing him. We're laughing, get him, get him. It was this beautiful moment. It was this incredible moment in our home. It was an incredible day. It was an incredible dinner. And everything was just great. My team was doing well. Life was great. You know, we had just put a pool in the backyard. We had air conditioning home now. We each had our own car. You know, like just simple things in life that you celebrate.
Yeah.
You know, I was raised with no air conditioning. There was air conditioning. We had window fans. And people are like, what's a window fan? I'm like, you know what a window fan is? It's a fan in the window. That's it. It blows whatever temperature's outside, inside. That's what you get. You know, so we were just living a family life of just celebrating. You know, I know you're going through with your 5 girls and you're going to events and meets and things. It's just so much fun.
Yeah.
So we're just in the midst of this amazing time. So to have this happen out of nowhere, it was an explosion, right, in the house, right? He died of a massive heart attack. He just, at 5 years old, kids don't die of heart attacks, right? He had a genetic disorder, we found out, that was passed on a gene, passed from me to him, that children need this gene until they're about 10, they said. And then at 10, another gene steps in. And it's for successful heart function. He didn't have that gene. So when he was startled, his heart reacted in a way that it shouldn't react. So my wife kind of startled him. He was coming around the corner. She was hiding. She startled him. I watched it. She picked him up, and it was just a typical, like a boo.
Yeah.
You know, you don't expect me to be there, and there you are.
Yeah.
So she picked him up, and I know in fact, without question, when she picked him up, I'm watching. His head's hanging. We had two Yorkies. They were jumping up at him, and I remember thinking, his head looks funny to me. Like what, you know? But you know, mothers are born to hold babies, right? But the mothers are born to do a lot of other things too. But they're baby holding masters.
Absolutely.
So I didn't say anything. She gets to the back of the house and she starts screaming. So I run to the back of the house. I grab Teague. I put him on the coffee table. He has no pulse. His eyes are rolled back in his head. And she calls 911 in for about 12 minutes. You know, I'm pumping on his chest. I'm breathing in his mouth. I'm doing CPR. And I couldn't save him. At one point I thought the ambulance was coming. So I picked him up. I ran him out of the house, ran him up the street to the corner to get him in the ambulance faster. It wasn't an ambulance. It was a cop on a call for another reason. I run him back to the house, keep doing it. They finally come in. The EMTs finally come in. They run some tests on him, throw him in the ambulance. My wife and I follow the ambulance to the hospital. And, you know, something we had never done before in our, at the time, 11 years of marriage, 12 years of marriage, was pray together. You know, we held hands. I did 2 things. I called my older brother, that's now the attorney, and said, "Listen, something happened. We're on the way to the hospital. Teague's in the ambulance. Here's where we're going. Let the family know." And my wife and I started to pray together. He's in surgery for about an hour and a half. My whole family's gathered now. We're waiting in the lobby, and I remember the surgeon coming out. I remember him not looking up. I remember him looking down. I'm like, oh man, why is he looking down? Oh, sorry. Sorry. Damn.
You don't have to be sorry, man.
You know, anybody watching, I know that anyone that's been through anything traumatic, just the the memory of it can take you back there instantly, right? So I'm instantly brought back to that moment. So, he just said, we're sorry, we're sorry. We couldn't save him. And so, grief isn't something that I ever experienced, and the disbelief and the pain. So we get in the car, my wife and I were driving back. It was about 14 miles, 14 minutes back to our house. My children were waiting at the house, my 11, 8-year-old and 3-year-old. So we pull in the driveway. And I remember as we pulled in, my kids came running out of the driveway, running out of the front door and down to the car. And my 8-year-old son, Jake, asked, as many people as you've interviewed and as many amazing people I've met in my life, a lot of them just say, what's the key to long-term success? We know there's a lot of pieces to it, but one of them is common sense, right? Just using common sense. And my 8-year-old son asked a common sense question, which was, where is Teague? Now, I was 36 at the time. My wife was 35. If he would have asked me the name of every supporter, if he would have asked me the tendencies of every guy on my team, technical tendencies, why I bought the truck I'm in, why we moved to the house we moved to, why I left Syracuse and went to Iowa, I could have answered. But he asked me a question I didn't know. I was 36, leading a family of 4. I didn't know where he was. So in that moment, my life's mission went to, where is he? What are the possibilities? And I dove into that. So there was a lot of grief. There was a lot of fighting. I'd like to say that our marriage was this perfect in unison couple grieving together. It wasn't that. It was rough and it was ugly at times. And the 3 surviving, a lot of times, all the interviews you've done, a lot of times the 3 surviving children struggle. Mm-hmm. They struggle for extended periods of time because they're forgotten to some degree, because people aren't strong enough to get over their grief. And I think we made a decision early on that wasn't going to be us, but there was a lot of struggle in the house. We got help, and we fought. We fought to stay together, mm-hmm. right? We fought to raise a family. We fought for it, and my faith journey began. And I basically took a piece of paper, and the thinking was simply, where could he be? Well, there's 2 places. Either it's over, and you live and die, and that you're created by chance. To some degree, it's just a random something happened and we're here, or there's a God that mm-hmm. loves us. And I dove deeply into both. So all of my free time was focused on where's Teague, and I studied it intensely, and I got an answer, and I decided. I think a lot of times we get answers and we don't decide. You have to make the decision, and the decision was, God is real, and I'm going to follow him. And that's where Teague is. And I say this to a lot of people have said to me, well, it was probably because, not whether, and listen, whether I was agnostic. I wasn't even agnostic. I think I believed. I just wouldn't bet my life on it. Yeah. I was raised Catholic. I went to church every week. I knew there was something, but I never put enough focus into it to say I would die for this. I believe this so strongly I would die for it. And now, I'm in that place where I actually absolutely would. I believe that it's truth. Yeah. So I chased truth. I didn't chase God. I chased truth, and I found. And I'm happy to say now that the place I'm in right now, so we're 21 years removed from that day, that February 16th day. It was 21 years, that February 16th, 2025. We lost Teague in 2004. I know where my life is now. And I can only say where it is based on what I chose. Now, if I would have chose no God, I would like to say I'd be in the same place, but I don't know that. I only know what I know. And the truth is, I'm where I'm at. My kids are where they're at. My wife is in the place she's at. Our marriage is in the place because I chose to follow God. I believe that mm-hmm. emphatically.
The word choosing and chosen has come up. By the way, thank you for sharing that. I really, really appreciate that. Chosen suffering is like your ethos, is you. It's the title of your book. it's a big thing. Can you go deeper on that ethos of yours of what chosen suffering is all about?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I'm sure when you started playing football and quarterback and your family into sports, for me, when I got into wrestling, it wasn't chosen suffering.
Yeah.
Like I was a 7th grader.
But I don't know, wrestling kind of is a chosen suffering thing.
It is for sure. But, cross country, you and I talked about Prefontaine and all his great quotes and just being able to do things that are unbelievably hard, right?
Yep.
Now, chosen suffering. So I came up with the term chosen suffering, not when I was in 7th grade, when I got involved in wrestling, not when I was at this intensive camp, not when you're in the middle of a 10-mile run. Mm-hmm. But I came up with the thought of chosen suffering after the loss of Teague, which was unchosen suffering. So I didn't label all this work to be the best at what you do as chosen suffering until I experienced unchosen suffering, which are all the things in life that bring you to your knees. Wrestling has never brought me to my knees. Now look, I was crying for 15 minutes. I've cried a lot. I've gotten beaten to my knees, but it never took me to a place of begging for mercy.
Yeah.
I never got there in wrestling. Yeah, I wanted to be really good at it. I wanted to be elite at it. But at no time did it make me think at a much, much deeper level about life. And when I lost Teague in 2004, that I refer to as unchosen suffering, right? All these things, again, that happened that you didn't ask for. I didn't want that. And there's a lot of things that happen every day in our lives and our friends' lives, right? There's a little boy right now named Oscar. You might have seen the story in the news. His grandfather and I are friends. Oscar was attacked by pit bulls on his front lawn. He's 9 years old. He got mauled by pit bulls. That is not something, right, that you would ever ask. That's unchosen suffering, but the world's full of it. Mm-hmm. So when I was dropped to my knees by the loss of Teague, that was unchosen. And it made me think about all the things that I chose that were really hard, but didn't they transformed me to some degree, but not my faith. And my book was kind of a faith. It's kind of a faith journey. I know it's kind of, it's a lot about leadership and learning, but it's also a lot about, coming to your belief system as you walk along earth, right? Which is, to me, the number one decision we all make more than anything. I would have said, it's who you're going to marry, who you're going to spend the rest of your life with, what's your profession you're going to be, what sport you're going to choose. There's so many big decisions we make and little ones. But the number one decision we make is to decide your belief system. Is there a God or not a God? So it was, a lot of struggle. So unchosen suffering gave me is unchosen and chosen. Mm-hmm. And there's no question that people that climb really high throw themselves into the fire. Mm-hmm. I think you just do it. You have a belief.
Well, it feels like too, I'd be curious because again, I've had the bonus now to get to sit here and watch some of the best wrestlers in the world work out, with you, kind of commentating. It's the coolest thing ever. I'm curious, what do those guys that we just watched, what do they have? They all seem to have in common that the ones who aren't quite as great, almost the difference between good and great, they aren't quite as great. What do they have that the others don't? Yeah.
So I would say, I think in all studies ever performed on elite behavior, whether it's Zwick and Galston, he studied it in 1869, I believe, and Zwick in 2018. So in 1869 it was studied. Galton in 2017, I think she wrote her book, and there was commonalities in it. Mm-hmm. And one is an ungodly effort. Effort. So in both studies, effort was incredibly important. Mm-hmm. And I think effort stems from, I think effort over time is a byproduct of deep love.
Yes.
And chosen suffering is about deep love, right? Mm-hmm. We call it chosen suffering. It's a fancy word for love, because you will suffer the most for the things you love the most, right? If one of your girls has an issue, you are standing in front of her in an instant to help her and protect her. So you would die for any one of them, right? That's chosen suffering. So, yeah, I lost my train of thought a little bit.
Well, no, we were talking about like some of the
or what they had, their traits.
the
right?
commonalities
The traits of
between the
Yeah.
elite of the elite
Yeah.
versus the ones who are just good.
So deep love, effort,
Yeah.
effort's given to the things you love the most, skill, a high capacity to learn and skill. I think another thing is just effort and skill are the two.
Yeah.
Are the two biggest, effort and skill. But then you have this capacity to live in truth,
Yeah.
to really be honest with yourself and be okay with it. It's really strong self-assessment.
Yeah.
And then the capacity, the discipline to do it daily,
Yeah.
all the time, to work on your shortcomings and really be good enough to look in the mirror and say, I love you, but you got some problems.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like,
You know?
the best of the best also I found, whether even in business, I ran
Yeah.
sales teams in corporate America, the good ones, like let's say the good reps I had, they were like, hey, can you just let me do my thing? Leave me alone. The great ones,
Yeah.
give it to me. Give me the I need some I want feedback every day, all the time, every call. And it feels like, it's happening right now as we speak. Like the great ones want
The
feedback.
coachability is just a big deal.
Yeah.
Being coachable and wanting, it's funny. Most people want to be coached until they're getting coached.
So they're like, coach, chill out.
easy. But I think there's also an art. I think there's an art in when to coach. And, it's like, don't beat them too much when they're down.
Yeah.
We was saying in here, hard on self, not down on self, which is a build to lead, I got a really good friend, Chet Scott. That'd be a great interview. He's a superstar leader.
Yeah.
He's helped me a lot, but we talked about be hard on self, not down on self. Down doesn't get you anywhere. Be hard on yourself. But guys that are hard on themselves is really good. But then they can
what's the difference between being hard on yourself and being down on yourself?
It's a play on words a bit, but it's like, it's like you can be so hard on yourself that you debilitate yourself.
Yeah.
It's like that's down.
That's down. Okay.
Like be hard on yourself. I want more. Yeah,
have high standards.
Have high standards
and strive to live up to them.
Right. Yes, but don't get down.
Yeah.
Because down, just be hard. Yeah. So a lot of the guys in there just really hard on themselves.
Yeah.
And then we do a good job of making sure they're not getting down on themselves.
Huh.
Because down on yourself leads you to a path that you don't want to be.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in that path.
The other thing where you were pointing out your coaches.
Yeah.
And you look at your career as a wrestler, like your whole staff, starting with you, are all killers, like great wrestlers. And in my sport, there's some of the best coaches that didn't even play. Like they didn't even make it to college or certainly not the pros. I played for coaches who didn't, and at times it's like they can still be good coaches.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like that's the case. Maybe it's just your program and others, but like Dan Gable is a great wrestler. Like you're a great wrestler. Every guy in your staff's an absolute killer wrestler. What is it about wrestling where it's almost like the guys aren't going to listen to them if they weren't All-Americans? Like what is that what it is? Like what is
it's
it?
interesting you bring this up, and it's a really interesting, it's just got good awareness of that fact in wrestling. And I think it's to a detriment.
Huh.
I think it's to a detriment. So, I've talked to football coaches. You just don't go from playing football to being a head football coach.
No.
I mean, you heard me. I was 2 years as an assistant.
Yeah.
And I'm a head coach. And I think wrestling is in this realm of you had to be a master at it.
Yeah.
If you're going to help me. And I had to watch you. And then there's some degree of you have to be able to beat me.
Huh.
You have to be able to whip me. If you can't whip me, then you can't help me.
When you were 25, could you beat everybody on the team?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Like you still would beat everybody?
Yeah. I would. Yeah.
When did that go away?
Probably in my early 30s. So maybe 5 or 6 years after being here, it started to get a little bit
So when you got to Ohio State, you're still killing everybody.
I couldn't beat Kyle Snyder. There were some guys I couldn't beat.
Did you actually wrestle him?
Yeah, but what I could do, and I wrestled live with him. He was big. But what I could do is I could challenge them.
Yeah.
I could challenge them. And maybe we wouldn't go live, but we would spar. And I would get them in positions. And you actually, it's kind of like playing with your kid on the floor. Your relationship blossoms, right? When you're just on the floor with your child, right? They'll never forget, right? They talk about, right? They know now the brain from 0 to 1, how critically important that phase is in a person's life.
Yeah.
So wrestling's kind of that way. Now, I can't whip anybody anymore. I'm coming through. I was talking about a horrific car accident.
Right.
I can't really move that well, and it hurts the connection. Personally,
You still look like you could beat
yeah, it
everybody.
looked like it, but I can't. I can't.
Yeah.
My grandmother used to tell my grandfather he can't lick a stamp anymore, and that's kind of where I'm at. I can't lick a stamp, So it is a unique difference because a lot of the best football coaches, listen, no football coach is trying to tackle their running back or trying to defend their quarterback from throwing a ball to the wide receiver. Yeah. But in wrestling, there's kind of this rite of passage. And the thing is, in wrestling they need to grow from this standpoint that just because you can wrestle doesn't mean you're going to be a great coach.
Yeah.
And it sets the sport back a little bit when you think you can, and it's set up that way.
Yeah.
So you come out of college as an elite wrestler and you think you can coach. Well, you don't know anything about coaching. You know about wrestling. In fact, you know about being selfish. More than anything, you know about being somewhat selfish. Because it takes that, right? To be an elite competitor, you have to have a bit of that in you. So that's just the reality.
How do you, because like, for example, in the world of professional selling, it's like background after I got done playing football.
Yeah.
A lot of times if you're like in the top of the stack rankings, they have stack rankings that come out every day of like who sells the most, right? Those people get to interview to become a manager. Right. But oftentimes that person may get the job and they're actually not a very good manager. They're not like good at teaching others to do it. I'm curious how in wrestling, since it seems like the majority of the coaches, or at least the great coaches, were great wrestlers. In football and other sports, that's not the case. So I really am trying to come up with a portable lesson here for like the business world of how you get people who are the best at it to actually then become not only still good as a wrestler, but good at teaching others and lifting others up and helping them become better at the craft, better at the thing that they're doing. When before maybe they were just selfish and just good for themselves, but not good at teaching others.
Yeah, I think so. We're talking about leadership. I think leadership is three. There's a lot. I think it's three-pronged for me. I like the simplicity of it. For me is three-pronged. The first is they come out as great wrestlers, but the first I think trait is example. So I think example is the first trait. I think that all leaders are, and they walk the walk. So I've been in this sport long enough to know that these are the areas that you've got to be really good at, and then so by example, right? You display example, but you challenge them in these ways. So examples first, and then I think the second thing is we call sharing truth and love. Which sounds easy. Mm-hmm. But too much truth and you're patronizing me, or you're offending me. Mm-hmm. Like it's offensive. Like you're coming at me really hard here. Mm-hmm. And too much love, you're patronizing me. Stop it. Give me the truth. Hit me harder. So I think just being able to honestly, authentically share strengths and weaknesses with your staff is really important. And here's where you've got to grow. Mm-hmm. So I think being able to do that is really important. And then the last one is embracing pain and suffering, which is, listen, we're gonna make decisions that weren't right, and we're gonna accept them and we're gonna, grow from them. Yeah. And just being someone that isn't your fault, it was my fault, So I think those are the three of the things that I think about constantly with my staff and how I can help them, and then I empower them. Yeah, you empower them. It's like, I'm not afraid that a student athlete might say on ESPN one night that Jay Jaggers was the difference in my wrestling career. Mm-hmm. I want them to say that. Mm-hmm. It's not to be the time. It's not the Tom Ryan show. It's Jay Jaggers. It's Bo Jordan. It's Logan Stieber. And it's kind of like in wrestling. It's kind of like a positional coach. Mm-hmm. You probably had a quarterback coach. Yep. They're positional coaches, so they're weight coaches, and we're not. I don't box them into one weight or two or three weights, but they build a rapport with a student athlete, typically around their size, because they work with them. So it's, it's empowering them too, and giving them responsibility, and having, not being a control freak where I've got to do everything and everything's got to run through me. Like, I trust you. I trust your decision making, make the decision. Yeah. So I think those are some of the things I think that, and then I think great coaches are, as the three C's, we call them, competence. They're really competent from a skill standpoint. So I want to be around someone that can teach skill. And I've coached them enough and watched them wrestle enough. They understand the positions. Right. So they're really competent when it comes to the skills of the sport. they're just great people. So they're connectors, right? The other C, the second C is being a good connector, connecting with people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just transactional,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm sure is, a big management selling. And then character.
Mm-hmm.
They all have great character. If any one of them was behaving in a way that I would get rid of them,
Mm-hmm.
I'd get rid of them because, I think deep in this, in my student athletes' souls, they want to be around people that are making good choices,
Making them better people.
making them better people. I think at the core,
Yeah.
we want that.
Well, it's part of like trust. Part of a trusting relationship is, I think, first and foremost, high character and high competence. You got to have both. Though I think you got to have both. If you want a trusting relationship, you got both of those things at least. That, okay, he knows what he's talking about, and I have no doubt in his character and who he is as a person. And I feel like that's like how big time championship cultures are built, from high character and high competent staffs. I'm curious for you as the CEO, technically, of the Ohio State wrestling program, that like, how do you create an environment where it's safe, and not only safe, but you make it known that you want feedback, that you want coaches, player or wrestlers or others to provide, because like, you're not perfect, this, right? Like you need feedback too, but sometimes people aren't good at creating the environment where people feel safe. Like, oh, Tom Ryan, he's intimidating. I don't know. He was a tough guy. Maybe I try to couch it and not make it real, but that's not going to make you better. You need the real feedback.
Sure.
So how do you create the environment where people can do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the key to that is vulnerability.
Yeah.
I think the leader being vulnerable, that I've made choices that I regret.
Yeah.
That I'm not perfect. That I've failed many times. That I want your feedback. That I care about your opinion. I think if you come off as a stoic perfectionist that has never failed in any way, I think people can see through it.
Yeah.
Because that's never happened except for once, in my opinion. One person's lived to be the image of God, and that was God. Certainly not me. So I think that's a big thing. I ask for feedback. I hired an outside guy to help me with the leadership.
Oh, really?
So I hired this guy named Chet Scott. He does a lot of the teams here now. I met him through a common friend. I went to work out with him first because, like you, like my lens is very focused on what I'm looking for. I know what I'm looking for, and I know what I want to be around. I mean, even from 7th grade, like I have this sense of this is who I want to be near. And I met Chet and I worked out with Chet. And the first thing I'll do with someone before I'll ever hire them, the first thing I'll do before I ever buy a piece of machinery is I use it.
Yeah.
I test it.
Yeah.
So I met with this guy, Chet Scott, who owns a company called Bill Talid. I worked out with him in the morning. And the first thing I want to know is the dude tough?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, is he tough? Because I don't want advice from someone who is telling me give me all this advice, but you're a cupcake. Like, I want a tough dude. Like, I want you to walk the walk. So I worked out with him first, and I was like, whoa, he looks like nothing, but he's tough.
Okay.
He's the golfer, so he swings the club, and he's really mentally tough. So I'm like, I'm interested. And then I went to watch him work with a leadership group. So I worked out with him first. He passed the test, and then it was all core. It was all core work. This isn't about like the power cleans, and it was all core work. And his core, we called his literal and physical core. Right, your literal core. When I'm in a situation at a party and people are passing around a joint, am I going to take it or not? No, my core is strong.
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm not doing. I'm going to leave the party. Number one.
Yeah.
But if I don't leave the party, there's no way anybody can get me to do that. My core is strong. No, just try. No, I'm not doing it. So you have the literal core and the physical core. So I learned that, and so I watched him, and I watched him interact with people, and it's like, I want you to work with me.
Huh.
And so he worked with me and my team, and that was been a big blessing for us as a team and me personally, to hire someone that was in the business and could really challenge me.
Yeah. I think that's another commonality of leaders who have sustained excellence that I've learned is this like yearning for coaching and feedback and not thinking they've got it. Like I do this like a good boss or favorite boss and worst boss exercise. And one of the commonalities among like the worst bosses is they've got it all figured out. They got all the answers. They need no help. It's like that. That's like they always are in the worst. Versus the favorite bosses is always like growth focused, striving to get better, surround themselves with other people. I want to talk about like one other day that was monumental for you. And it's not that long ago, April 23rd, 2024, right? You're driving here, right? You're driving here, early morning, right? Probably getting ready to work out. What happened?
Yeah. So that was probably, and it's odd to say that as grief filled as I was when I lost my son, this was a different experience.
Yeah.
But equally as challenging. When we lost Teague, I was healthy. I was physically healthy. I was mentally healthy. So I was able to cope with. You have 3 children that are grieving. Your wife's grieving. I was better. I was by no means ready for it, but I was better equipped. Equipped in some ways. And then when I hit this tractor trailer at full speed, parked on the highway at 5:45 in the morning, one, I was not ready for that, and 2, the physical trauma that occurred was surreal, and I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to deal with it. I wasn't ready emotionally. I think the reality of, like, you work out every day, like the truth of having, I hadn't missed a workout. I would say maybe I went 2 days in my life since then without sweating. So now I'm 4 months in and I haven't sweat.
4 months into your recovery.
In our recovery, I mean, I couldn't.
What happened? What happened for
so
the?
I basically so there's a tractor trailer parked on the highway. I hit it at full speed.
Just didn't see it? Or?
Never saw it. Never saw it. I all I remember is I was singing. I know what I was doing. One, I was wide awake, and I know that from this Aura ring.
Yep.
I track everything. So it tracks my recovery, how much sleep I had. I was wide awake. I was drinking my morning drink, which was garlic, honey, lemon, and ginger root. I mix it all together, and it's this drink I drank this morning. This goopy drink that's going to keep you healthy. And
yeah.
So I was drinking the drink. I was singing "Trusting God" by Elevation Worship. I was watching the road. I looked to my right. I remember changing lanes, and that's the last thing I remember. So I hit it full speed. I woke up from being cut out of the car. I was unconscious, but I heard the saw cutting me out. I remember saying, "Where am I? What happened?" I remember the EMT saying, "You were in a serious car accident." And then I remember saying, "Please don't touch me. I'm in a lot of pain." And that's the last thing I remember. And then I remember little glimpses of things. About 5 days later, I wake up. I had the left leg was 10 hours. The first surgery was 10 hours to repair the left leg. The right leg was healthy, but used to save the left leg. They took an 11-inch by 6-inch by half-inch piece of flesh off my quad. They took it right above the quad. This guy's a genius, Dr. David Nash. That was 12-hour surgery. So day 1 was 10. Dr. Angela Collins is a genius. Thank God they were right here. Like the blessing that I was 8 miles from the hospital. So Dr. Collins gets me in there. She does the rebuild of my left leg. Dr. Nash protects the left leg with all this flesh and skin. I tore my shoulder. It's still torn. I tore my bicep off. It's still torn. I'm just not ready yet to go back in for more surgeries. But between the trauma and the pain and the lack of, I had a lack of hope. I'd be able to wrestle again. Through the lack of the natural endorphins of working out, I mean, I went into a terrible depression, which I'd never experienced depression. Like, I was sad when I lost my son, but I wasn't depressed. I didn't want to die, but in this, I was suicidal for a little bit.
Really?
Yeah. I got so low in such a bad place. I share it with my family. I'm like, listen, I'm in the unthinkable place. Like, I can't believe what my brain is thinking. And then this falls into being a landlord of your mind, and which I talk about in the book, but being a landlord of your mind, but not knowing when to trust your feelings and when not to trust your feelings. You can't always trust them. They're not reliable all the time. And you've got to be a decipherer of when to and when not to. And it's not easy. In this situation, it should have been easy, but it didn't feel easy. A lot of people just end it. They just end it. They overtrust their feelings. They're caught up in the moment, and they trust their feelings. So I openly shared with my closest friends and my family, this is my thought. This is where I am. I don't like where I'm at. And I got help. And I can't believe that my brain was in that place 6 months ago. Like I
Just
can't
6 months
even,
ago. Wow.
I can't. So we're 1 year removed from the
Yeah.
accident.
Yeah.
But now looking at, I was at a place where at one point I'm with my grandchildren that I would gladly, like you with your daughters, and die for. No, gladly take their place. I would have gladly taken Teague's place. Like I was with him and I couldn't find any joy in it.
Hmm.
So I was just so low. And, I got help and time and uncovering every rock. It wasn't like just laying in bed hoping things are going to get better. I started taking creatine. I started taking vitamin D. I got a therapist. I started walking. I could only walk. I would time myself to the mailbox and back, how many I could do, in a certain amount of time. And I saw improvement. And the other thing, I think I stopped assessing, day by day how I'm doing, because day by day felt like I was getting no better.
Mm-hmm.
So it can pull you down the rabbit hole. I was mad at myself for not having stronger faith. Like you said, God's real.
Mm-hmm.
Your goal is to build yourself into the closest image possible. That's all of our missions. How close can you get to the image of what God created you to be? Self-mastery. That's the end goal. That was avoiding me, and everything I believed was just. And then you go into a deeper spiral. You coward. You start calling yourself names you shouldn't be calling yourself when you're, where's your faith? You're faithless. God didn't promise you 2 good legs. People have had way worse things than this in life, and they've made it through. And then ultimately, at some point, I just pulled out of it. I just pulled out of it. And I remember when I was in it, I felt like I was in this bubble, and I started to sleep at my son's house. So I went to his house at night because at least the grandkids kept me busy. And I think the biggest thing was I just couldn't get my mind off myself. And I think I was just so consumed with me, and my wellness, that it was like, listen, if you're struggling, like they talk about anxiety, and they say, if you have really bad anxiety, which to me was never real, now it's real. When I have anxiety in my legs, I feel an explosion. I think it's going to have a heart attack. So I have a different, approach. But in studying anxiety, it's like you're anxious going to a party because you can't get your mind off yourself. Like just walk in the party and tell someone they look good.
Yeah.
Like stop worrying if your shoes are right or your dress looks good, or is this the right shirt, or did I shave? Am I buffed enough? It's like focus on somebody else. And I think that helped me in the evenings with my grandkids. At least it was a few hours there where I could just focus on them.
Yeah.
And get it off of me because they just demand so much.
Yeah.
Of your attention. So, those are some of the ways I think.
So do you think it stemmed because like I feel you on my medicine in life is like punishing myself physically. Like It's only if I don't even necessarily know how I'll feel if I don't do it because I'd never not done it.
Yeah.
Like since I was in 5th or 6th grade, maybe.
Yeah.
Like every day. It's just part of what is it, honestly, I feel like it's
you
like
need it.
I have to have it. So
Yeah.
I've always thought like I've never had like a crazy injury before. I've had injuries, but nothing bad. Is it because that, like, I know you're kind of like that too. Is it because that was just taken away and you're like laid up and in bed? You're like, I'm worthless. I can't push myself. I can't do anything. Is that where you think like the depression stemmed from?
Yeah, I'm exactly like that.
Yeah.
Like you are, where it's not even like I want it.
You have to.
You need it.
Yes.
And they show now, like science has shown that they talk about natural endorphins and stuff, that your muscles actually send signals to your brain when you're using them. Like it's real.
Yeah.
It's science. Like God and science are best friends.
Yeah.
Like this isn't like believe one or the other.
Right.
Science is real.
Yeah.
So yeah, not having it, I wanted it and I couldn't have it. And I think just the natural healing that occurs by being able to do it, I couldn't do that. So it was pulling me further down, that I had none of these naturally occurring endorphins that are getting to my brain, and that I was just used to. So yeah.
So you needed like less focus on yourself, more on people you love.
Yeah,
right?
and suffering. Listen, I love that you feel that way because, and it's probably a lot of reason why you're so successful is that. Like I think so when I'm on the bike, I use the bike now. That's my means of torturing myself.
Yeah.
I can't run right now. I can't really walk fast, but I can bike. And every single time I bike, there comes a moment in the bike ride where I realize I'm a sissy. I'm just a wimp. And that I can't, like there comes it with like your humanity is thrown in your face.
Yeah.
Like there are things that you can't do by yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you can't maintain, for me, but you can't maintain at 185 watts. If you can do that, at some point you can no longer do that. And I think there's just like a humbling, there's a humility piece that you get from suffering, that there's a point in the suffering where you've just had enough and you can't take it anymore. And it's powerful in your life.
Yeah. I think to me, it builds
Yeah.
immense confidence. For example, I can always come up with an excuse why I'm not going to do squats, for example. Okay. And this happens semi regularly. I'm there. I see the squat rack. I have the weights ready to go. There are people around, and I'm like, you know what? My knee's kind of feeling bad. My hamstring's a little tight from sprints on Sunday.
Right.
I think I'm going to stop. And then I have to pause and say, dude,
Yeah.
get under the bar. Like, get under the bar.
bar.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think regularly getting under the bar, regularly pushing past the obvious excuse that I have, then builds confidence for everything else in life. Like all of the other hard things, it's like, no, I chose to do the hard thing. I got under the bar. I didn't really want to. I had excuses. I had good reasons not to, but then did it anyway. That's what I think is kind of the medicine, the part of it that says that it's so portable to other parts of your life by choosing suffering on your own terms. It prepares you to handle the inevitable adversity you're going to face. Right?
I think that's, well said. And it's the power, right? One in sport, but also just doing things that, like they say, discipline is a superpower.
Sure.
It's available to everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's just real.
It's real.
Yeah, it's real.
I know you got to run, pick up a recruit.
Yeah,
I have one more question before you go to the airport. You work with young people, right?
Yeah.
You work with people who are obviously college athletes, college student athletes. I'm curious for the person who's like just out of college, for example, right? They don't fully necessarily know what they want to do, but they want to leave a positive dent in the world. What are some general pieces of life/career advice you give to them?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of people that graduate college and don't know their purpose.
Yeah.
Their passion. That's very common. I mean, I raised children that they weren't sure, right, what they were going to do.
Probably most people.
Most people.
Yeah.
There's a funny skit on Saturday Night Live, it was David Letterman, where Norm is on his show.
Yeah.
So Norm was on Cheers. I mean, this might be dating. People know what Cheers is. Do you know what Cheers is?
Yes, I do. I do.
Cheers. So Norm's in an interview. He's being interviewed by Letterman, and he said, "Look, I'm one of the few people that go to college and actually am doing what I studied." He said, "I used to sit at the corner of the bar and drink beer, and now I'm doing that." So it's one. We do a lot. We do a lot with our team on knowing who you are, knowing what your belief system is. I'm not talking about whether there's a God or not. I'm talking about your belief system.
Yeah.
These are things, because every one of us, every decision we make is based on a belief system.
Yeah.
Right. You've come to terms that ultimately this is my belief system. You believe that getting out of the bar is good for you and important for you.
You have like a code, right? You want to come with your life code, values, behaviors. Yeah.
So we work a lot with our guys on that life code. Just being, it starts inside, right? Build a strong core. My daughter I don't know what my love is. I don't know what my passion is. In the search, you're gonna find it will be revealed to you.
Yeah.
It will be revealed to you over time. But you have to stay the course. Stay the course. Live inside these set of boundaries. Continue to strengthen yourself. Continue to grow in the things that you do enjoy. My daughter loved film.
Yeah.
So listen, let's get you. She's interned at a church and she learned about film, and now she's in film. My son loved wrestling, but he also loved videography. Now that world has taken him to the real estate world, but he followed his love. My son Jake has never had a drink in his life, right? It was a core belief. I'm never gonna drink.
Mm-hmm.
So in the midst of trying to figure out what your purpose and passion is, you can kind of ruin that to some degree if your core is not strong and you're making decisions that when you finally figure it out are going to be looked back upon, like even simple things. Like every guy on my team follows me on Instagram. I follow them. I know who they follow on Twitter. Like, who are you even following? Why are you following that? Why would you follow that particular individual? What about that? So it just, creates a mindset that is just powerful.
Yeah.
So, they intern, we get them out in the public, we have them speaking, we bring them to, like, we Children's Hospital. One of my guys fell in love with children. I wants to be a nurse. So we try to expose them to as much as possible, because you never know when you're gonna. Yeah. It's like, wow, man, I got the chills. I'm ignited by this. Like, this is what I want to do with my life. Yeah. So it's exposed them to a lot, but make sure that they're strong internally, that their core is really strong. Because with a strong core, you can do about anything.
Man, these guys are so lucky to have you. They're so lucky to have you, man. Like, what a cool way that you choose to go about this. I'm just so grateful for you. I'm grateful for your time. I would love to keep talking, as we both progress, man. This was so good. This was so much fun. And if you'd have us, we'd love to come back, maybe like in a year or less. Yeah, whenever. Because if I look at my notes, like, we covered 2% of that. So there's so much there too that you have so much to offer, is what I'm saying. And today was just amazing. So thank you so much for having me.
It was great to be with you. Awesome. Congrats on all your success.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.